We find ourselves with Jesus at the seashore. It's the end of a long day of preaching and teaching to the crowds that have gathered to listen to Jesus. We know from the previous chapters in Mark that Jesus' popularity and success is growing. The crowd has gotten so big that Jesus had to get in the boat and go a little ways off the shore, and he spoke to people from there. Knowing that nighttime was quickly settling in, Jesus suggests to his disciples that they cross to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. We are told they head immediately out, even though the disciples, these fishermen, knew that nighttime had the potential for being a dangerous time for sea journeys. Violent windstorms that come off the Golan Heights can get trapped in the large freshwater basin, being deadly to even the most experienced fishermen. It is a fact that the waters of the Sea of Galilee could grow disturbingly and dangerously and immediately immense. And that is what seems to have happened in our story. I think we need to remember that many of these disciples were experienced fishermen. They understood the waters, the wind, and the shoreline. They knew it like they knew the back of their own hands. They grew up on the water. It was a livelihood. It was their playground. This seasoned crew would not have been frightened, or at least easily frightened, at the first angry wave or the intense gush of a wind. However, because they are seasoned, it does not take them long to realize that this storm is different from the ones they are used to, that they are actually in some trouble and serious trouble. Their boat was no match for the power of the raging winds. The angry sea was too much for them as the white-capped waves violently tossed the boat around as if it was a play toy on the water. All the while, Jesus is calmly sleeping, exhausted from the events of the day. The sea does not let up. The storm continues. Jesus continues to sleep. The disciples begin to panic, for they know that they have a legitimate reason to believe that this could really be the one that they'd always dreaded or feared might happen, that they might not survive the storm, that they feared they could end up at the bottom of the sea. You can almost hear the alarm in their voices when they finally decided to await Jesus, and they said, "Teacher, the boat is going down. Do you not care if we are perishing?" With that awakening, Jesus arises, calls out to the storm in the pitch black night, rebuking the wind and the sea. "Peace, be still." 3 words, and immediately there is calm. With his words, the wind stops and the water flattens, becoming as smooth as glass. I don't know if any of you do any kind of water skiing, but the best time to water ski is when that lake or that body of water is just pristine, clear, and smooth. That's what I imagine happened here. Just immediately, it is calm. The disciples are stunned, astonished. They are speechless. In an instant, the snap of the fingers, the frantic scene has gone from chaos and certain death to this stillness. It's almost like I was taken aback with the CDC, for we went to having to wear masks and wash and distance to, okay, you can go out and do whatever you want once you've been vaccinated. I'm still trying to grapple with that and handle that, so I can only imagine going from this chaos of almost death to peace in an instance. There is a palpable silence in the air. All is calm, except perhaps the beating of their heart and their disbelief. Jesus, turning his attention from the wind and the waves, speaks to his disciples directly. "Friends, why are you afraid, and what are you afraid of? Where's your trust in me?" It's interesting to note that Jesus does not say, "Why were you afraid?" but rather, what are you afraid of? In our translation, which is the New Revised Standard Version, which we usually read from, It reads this morning, and they were filled with great awe, which in my opinion does not really reflect the essence that's being said here. If you look at the contemporary English version, it says they were more afraid than ever. Or the NIV says they were terrified. And for those of you who like the King James, they feared exceedingly. The savageness of the storm that had truly frightened them is now taking second stage to the actions of Jesus. Storms they have seen and they have dealt with. They were accustomed to them, familiar with them, expected them. But Jesus, their leader, in absolute control over the winds and the sea, this is something they had never experienced before. They are dumbfounded, trying to comprehend what is just taking place. You can almost see the wheels spinning as they're trying to put it together to understand. And then they whisper among themselves, "Who is this? Who is this that even the wind and the sea obey him?" So what are we to make of this story? What takeaways are there for us to glean? I picked up Brian Blount's book. He is the president of Union Theological Seminary in Richmond, Virginia. And it's entitled Preaching Mark in Two Voices. It's been out a while, but I've just now have gotten to it. And Blount says this: by the time Jesus chastised his disciples, we are so mesmerized by nature's fury and Jesus' ability to control it that we risk missing how Mark sequences the script. It is for this reason that when we interpret this text, we typically do so, and he says, I, in here, as I have done and continue to do. We focus on the church as a storm-tossed boat that comes to the realization of good news. Jesus is in the boat with us, still present as our risen Lord, still empowered with the ability to quiet the storms that seek to drown us. And then he goes on to say, and this is what I want to focus on, perhaps, though, there is another window into this text, the window that looks not back at the scary storm, but rather forward in the calamitous calm, the frightening, dead calm. What Blount is suggesting is that we look at this text in a different way. Does our faith enable us to face forward in life, or do our doubts and fears keep us looking backwards over our shoulder, focusing our attention on what has happened instead of where we are and what's possible? You notice the words that Blount uses in his description of Jesus commanding the wind and the sea, calamitous calm. It's an interesting word. You don't hear that very often, do you? And frighteningly dead calm. They were what might think of incongruous with describing the calm that is taking place. He states the disciples are more afraid of Jesus' miracle and what it represents for them and for their ministries than they are of battling the tumultuous sea. So I want you to think about that for a moment. So they're more afraid of the calm than they are the chaos. It moves, and you'll appreciate this, Miss Allison, it moves Jesus out of the box of simply providing a safety and comfort, something that we like and which makes us feel good. Oh, yep, Jesus is in that boat with us. We've got it made. To something revealing, underlying to us that with discipleship comes a cost, something that we are not so quickly to embrace, something that might cause us to step back and pause. Battling storms we are used to, and as crazy as it might sound, I think in some ways we are comfortable with that. Picking up our cross and following Jesus challenges our way of thinking and living. It takes us out of our comfort zone to unfamiliar territory. You see, Jesus produces the calm, But he expects us then to use this calm that he has given to us to further kingdom living. For example, Jesus says to his disciples, I was hungry, and you gave me food, and I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. The calm that Jesus offers us, gives to us, is not cheap. It comes with a price. It comes with the expectations for truth and repentance and forgiveness, for justice and mercy for all. It comes with the understanding that we are not to live according to the world's standards, but rather to God's standards. It means feeding the hungry, giving drink to those who are thirsty, showing hospitality, even to those that we don't like, the alien, the stranger, the foreigner. Ministering to those who suffer and grieve, going and visiting those who are in prison and giving them hope. It seeks for us to continually look for places in which there can be renewal and restoration and redemption, which brings hope and peace and life where there is death. God comes into our lives and calms the storms so that we might participate in kingdom living, that we might be filled with joy and blessings. So maybe what we need to be paying attention to here is really when the disciples stopped and as they whispered to one another, who is this? I mean, they had been around him, but they got it but didn't get it. Who is this that even the wind and the sea obey him? We know who it is. It is the one who brings us life abundant and full, the one who loves us beyond our imagination, the one who is willing to open his arms and welcome us no matter where we are or what we've done, the one who always invites us eagerly, daily, to participate in his kingdom living. Friends, the message is clear. We are called out of the chaos to be calming waters that offer a glimpse into God's kingdom.